Again, I'm Dr. Nick Welch. I'm founder and CEO of Southern Safety Products, here today seeking investment for smoke shield system. Next slide, please. Again, a little bit about myself. I'm a medical doctor trained in emergency medicine as well as trauma burn surgery. I'm also a disabled special warfare combat veteran that served as a firefighter both in the Navy as well as a volunteer firefighter in the community for 9 years. I've since left clinical medicine and practice to commit full-time to this mission. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of backstory on the origin of the product. I was putting my children to bed one night and I went to turn the switch off on my son's wall and noticed the switch was just exquisitely hot. Looked and noticed the smoke alarms were on the inside of both their doors. Got very concerned that if a fire broke out here, even if the alarm sounded, that my children would not be able to get out in time. We're all aware of like egress ladders and masks. They've been on the market for 40 years. They've been shown to be ineffective for victims trapped in home fires. And anecdotally, that's 2 of my 3 kids right there. Next slide, please. So the National Fire Protection Association recommends that in the event of a fire, get out. And categorically, we agree. But the question is then, what if that is not possible? Every year, and this is on average, and it's actually been going up after a scale for about 20 years, there's about 17,000 people that either lose their lives or severely injured in a home fire because they are unable to get out for that very reason. About 80%, actually, over 80% of sleeping children do not wake to smoke alarms at all. And smoke deaths outnumber fire 8 to 1. So smoke categorically causes morbidity and mortality in home fires. Sprinklers, masks, ladders, they've been insufficient. I can go into more statistics, but I'll go a little bit into a product comparison here in a minute. Next slide, please. So considering that smoke is the #1 killer by far, trapped victims effectively need more time with breathable air to allow time for rescuers to get to them. Next slide, please. And then again, trapped victims need more time with breathable air to wait for rescue. Next slide, please. That's what our product is. The smoke shield system with its exclusively proprietary function and filter matrix is designed to provide up to and including an hour of breathable air in a small confined space during a home fire if escape becomes impossible. Looking at competitive advantage compared to the next slide, please. Sorry. Competitive advantage in the market. There are really only 2 modalities that have ever existed to address the problem of the inability to escape in a home fire. And over the past 40 years have shown no statistical decline in the number of deaths and injuries related to this issue. Next slide, please. Talking a little bit just quickly about the filter matrix itself. These metrics demonstrate that the component ratios in our filter matrix reduce carbon monoxide concentrations and cyanide as well to habitable levels and maintain them there indefinitely, or at least for as long as the smoke would be prevalent before the fire catches up. In essence, that these filter runs are a proof of concept that the device works. Next slide, please. So the U.S. market for smoke detection systems alone is $4 billion a year with a CAGR of 8.5%. Now, that's largely driven by mandate, with residential segments having the most aggressive CAGR with 9.7, and they're expected to double in the next 5 years. While the significant, next slide, please. While a significant portion of this $4 billion is within the scope of our planned product offerings, our legacy model as it is now is aligned for initial offerings in the residential market segment. Of that $4 billion, $1 billion in the U.S. is spent annually in the strictly residential smoke detection market, and analysis predicts a potential obtainable market annually of $225 million just in what we're doing here. Next slide, please. So with our hard cost build at $75 a unit, we can maintain adequate margins that will allow us to facilitate growth year over year. These numbers just represent the consumer product portion. the consumer product portion, of our business model. However, there's additional revenue generated by our monthly subscription services that improves the financial posturing with absolutely minimal overhead, as these are all contracted services through fleet management systems. So our go-to-market strategy, yes, thank you. In our early consideration, we were looking at direct-to-consumer, and our hard marketing dollars and our customer acquisition costs largely made this really kind of cost preventative and less efficient overall. So by focusing now more on the B2B model, using advanced ordering and purchase order financing, we get a greater return on investment. And this allows for a significantly earlier entry into the market, as well as substantially reduced upfront investment dollars. And even in the formative stages of this transition, we've already secured an early letter of interest from a resale distributor with established customer base in over 14 countries. So we've got very early product acceptance and awareness in this particular model. Next slide, please. So meeting the team, our executive team represents here includes professionals in technical, marketing, finance, sales, fleet management, and our IoT design considerations. This kind of rounds out our specific team that is essential core and officers of the company. However, these are supported by I'm sorry, next slide, please. This core unit is really supported by this very large spectrum of advisors that we've built over the past year. We still have ongoing continuous work with at least 6 different universities, 3 different capital firms, and multiple independent entities that have all been part of our growth and development over the past 12 months. And I'll spare everybody going through there unless there's any questions about individual partnerships, but they've all been exceedingly valuable in terms of our development. Key financial figures, we're currently seeking $500,000. Not sure why it didn't come. Oh, there we go. Just go ahead and blow it all in. Thank you. Currently seeking $500,000 for 12% in the form of equity or preferred stock. Our deliverable timeline is largely contingent on the level of investment. However, it's not entirely dependent on it. Currently, we are able to sustain at the level that we are with self-funding. However, our ability to kind of aggressively meet these KPIs and then move into not only our initial market entry, but beyond with our lateral markets that we'll probably discuss during the Q&A session. As such, we really anticipate an exit through acquisition, and one of the 8 major competitors that really occupy and have dominated the smoke detector or fire safety space, and this anticipated exit within the next 5 years. Really, so in close, next slide, please, and it's our final slide. And I tried to, in the interest of brevity, keep it to this. Our mission is, in business, there's obvious missions, but this has an inherent nobility in that the fruit of our work is to save lives, and the majority of those being children, seniors, those with disabilities. So we're on that mission to save as many lives as possible that are needlessly lost every year in the U.S. And we're seeking investors that are going to share our vision and our mission in this. My contact information is on the slide. That's directly to me. And as well as any and all of the officers within the company, there's just the similar web address with their name and last. So thank you guys for your time and this opportunity, and look forward to questions.